a lot of these spiritual concepts can be so esoteric that it just gets lost in translation to the common person who's just starting off the journey of remembrance. Because awakening is just remembrance. That's all it is. Remembering who we are, because that's why kids are that in tune, because they're that fresh from spirit. That's where we all go back to. Our essence is spirit.
Welcome to the Consciousness of the Way. I'm your humble servant and Sifu Taoist Master San Qing, and it's Christmas morning again. I go down to the tree, and the universe has brought me this incredible being. Once more, be careful what you wish for, and I seem to be surrounded and constantly realizing profound access points of consciousness, and today is no exception. I'm very grateful to welcome to the podcast Akasha Hawai'i. How are you, my dear friend?
Hi there, I'm doing good. How are you?
Really, really good. And this is just a really awesome moment for the audience to just get a deeper understanding of just pure source information and how that, I love the way, just briefly we spoke before we got on, that, it's you're going to access whatever you perceive as your reality. Your the construct of whatever you deem as your reality is sort of like the foundation of how you get this direct source information. So I would love you to share with the audience a little bit about your backstory and how we got here today. Just a little summary of the profound direct source information that you are. Okay. You've got a rep in the social media sphere, so I'm excited to hear it.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'll kind of start from it as a kid. So I am from Hawaii. I'm mixed. I'm part Native Hawaiian and a whole bunch of other stuff. As majority of the people in Hawaii we're heavily mixed. So the culture here in Hawaii is, we pretty much all get along with each other to the degree of, all the way to the point of making fun of each other, because we're so mixed ethnicities and mixed cultures and everything. A big component of growing up here is you have all these different ethnicities that brought their stories, their belief systems here to Hawaii, which has always been a very spiritual place. I mean, basically, this is the remnants of Mu, which is Lemuria. So the Polynesian people have their own traditions and their own beliefs. And then you bring a whole bunch of others to join the party, and we've all grown up with, stories of ghosts and spirits. So the other side, if you're not religious, just growing up in Hawaii, that's part and parcel of the culture, is the spirituality component. Many people are religious here. I mean, I grew up that way too. But ever since, I would say, a pretty young age, I've sensed spirits. I've never wanted to see them, though. That was the difference. But I could always sense them. And because the culture is the way it is here, it wasn't looked at as, oh, you're crazy. Like if you can feel spirits, what are you talking about? It was just like, oh yeah, of course, there's a lot of them here. So fast forward, throughout the course of my life, I would say I've followed everything that society told me to do. So I went to a good school, decided to go to college, got straight into my career. I have a corporate career, got married, had kids. And the first kind of awakening was when I got divorced. And that was the first death that I had ever experienced. And that was when I was 27. So I didn't quite get into spirituality then, but remembering, I kind of dabbled a little bit, but I didn't know what to do. Then fast forward to last year. So last year, pretty much at the height of my corporate career, and at the same time, I was planning to give it all up. Like I wasn't resonating with it anymore. I did everything that society told me to do. And I was just like, you know what? I just want to live in the country. I just want to live on Kauai. I don't care about this stuff anymore. So at the height of my career, I was speaking in front of 400 people at a conference as one of the main speakers. And then later on that night, I got into a very, very bad car accident. And it's funny because the week before that, I had like an anxiety attack and I didn't know why. I was just like, oh man, my life got so complicated. I don't want to do this anymore. So I was already planning to step away from it. I just didn't know what I was going to do in the meantime. The year before that, I got into learning the Akashic Records. So before this car accident even happened, I had learned to access the Akashic Records. It's kind of like, if you're going to buy a car, then you start seeing the car everywhere on the road and you're like, oh, wow, everybody has that car, it's in your awareness. So a year before that, I had been trying to heal, I would say. I was trying to heal from my son's father who left when I was pregnant. And I decided to keep the child. He didn't want the child, but I decided to go through with it. So for about 4 years, I couldn't understand why that would happen. It wasn't a one-night stand. We were in a committed relationship and he just left. So then I started seeing, like the car example, I started seeing Akashic Records everywhere. I was like, I kind of know the Akashic Records, but it didn't work for me when I read Linda Howe's books. I don't know. I keep seeing it. So maybe I'll go and take a class on it. So I took a course and it was a one-on-one course with my teacher. And right away I got into the records. Right away I could see, all the questions that I was asking, I could see. And then so for about that time frame, and I started seeing galactic right away too, galactic records. And my teacher did not teach galactic. She's not into that at all. So I had no reference point. Just like, what are these beings that I'm seeing? And I was always of the belief that aliens are bad, because I've loved supernatural stories, and pretty much they all geared towards aliens bad. So I thought, and I wasn't into Star Wars. You couldn't get me to watch Star Wars. I could care less about those movies. But I started seeing galactics, and I started seeing in my own records, I started seeing, what I didn't know then, but, like the Lyra Wars. And I had to go to my crystal shop to ask. I was just like, you guys aren't going to think I'm crazy, but I'm seeing aliens. And luckily, of course, it's a crystal shop. It's a metaphysical shop. So they were like, you're seeing the Lyra Wars. I was like, the what? Like, I've never heard of that stuff. So they had me work on fear a lot for the months leading up to my car accident. Just working on fear, accepting, these are star beings that are visiting me, that I'm seeing in the records. These are, the different situations that happened. Came across Debbie Solaris's work. And I was like, finally, somebody who's not crazy, who's talking about this stuff. So then my car accident happened. And that pretty much blew the lid wide open. I mean, I like to say it cracked my egg. And I was already, like I said, into the records, but I had no desire to do records readings for anybody. I was like, this is for my own healing. I don't need the money. I don't want to read people. But, as life would have it, in healing from that accident, because it was extremely traumatic. It was the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to me. In healing from it, I learned Reiki. Then I kind of got to the point of like, okay, well, what am I doing with my life? And I think I had a friend, or they asked me, like, if money wasn't an issue, what would you do? I was like, well, if I didn't need money, I'm in the Akashic Records every day. Like, I love being in the records. It was part of my meditation practice too, because I lacked a meditation practice. And I was just like, well, I love being in the records. So I don't know, I guess maybe I'll try reading people, see how that goes. And having no expectations just kind of catapulted it. And also, like I said, the fact of being in such a traumatic situation as a car accident, it literally like cracked my egg. where I went through post-accident, I went through every type of death that one could experience except for physical. Although I was very, very close to taking myself out because it was that traumatic. So, so every death you can think of, you know, people say ego death. It's basically you strip all the layers down to the core and who are you. Mm-hmm. That was what I went through. That was kind of the process that I went through because of the accident. And
how long did that last?
Well, I would say it's still going on. But you know, I mean, we never truly heal. Like we're always kind of works in progress. You know, until I become a crystalline light being, then I'll be like, I'm fully healed. I'm a butterfly, you know. But I would say the process of the grit of it lasted for a solid, I would say 4 to 5 months until I started doing readings for people. So because I decided to do readings for people, just being in the records dedicated every single day, that actually helped to pull me out of it even more, because the Akashic Records, I mean, it's powerful. That's why I like to tell and teach people how to, I don't teach it, but I put out, you know, videos and stuff so people can do it themselves for free. But the records are so, I mean, it's so transformative. You know, the hardest part of being here is that we don't remember. I mean, you have some people that do remember, but otherwise it takes work to remember who you are. And the Akashic Records can do that for you. And it's also a very, very high frequency. So it's healing just being in the records because it's such a high frequency.
Yeah. I mean, when you access something, for me, I'm kind of like a show me guy, and I had my first hit of the spiritual crack pipe 30 years ago. When you get that, right, it's a valid. If you can't show me, I can't experience it. It doesn't mean much to me at all. So I'm very much into the visceral, kinesthetic experience, which comes with getting hits like the stuff that you're talking about. When you get those hits, and then you bring it back into this 3D reality, and you're sharing with someone information that's so transformative, whether they resonate from a past life or information about their present or future or whatever. And it's just so visceral. They're so immersed. You're at one with it. That pulsating resonance is just, it gets you high as a kite. I can see how you could want to hang out there all the time, as you should, because it's really a state of awareness, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The beauty of the records too is because you know I wasn't like this until I started going to the records even more than I was from my own. You know, I would do this on my own, maybe 10 minutes, an hour every day. But doing it for other people, what I found in being in the records so much is that you get to a point of, you get to the 0 point again, which is complete neutrality. That is, if you are in the records and you can get to that 0 point neutrality space, that's it. I mean, that is basically, you know, when people ask what is God, what is source, everything in existence, you are source. Everything is source. And what source is it's that neutrality where there is no such thing as good or bad. It just is. So
speaking my language, my friend.
Yeah. I mean, we live, and this realm that we're in very purposefully is a realm of polarity and duality. It's on purpose so that we can have experiences. I love to quote Darius J. Wright because he is like awesome. I don't listen to a lot of people, but Darius J. Wright does a lot of out of body experiences and shares his work. And he termed it, we come here to experience that which we are not. And that is so on point because we're just playing a role to enact an experience, and that's it. So it's the totality of your experiences. What kind of soul growth do you want to have coming into this life? It could be good, it could be bad. Neither of it There is no such thing as good or bad. It's just, what did you learn? What did you do? What did you experience? So I love being in the records because it helps me get to that point. Like if I'm having a bad day, I could go in the records and just kind of like 0 point, like, like back in that neutral space again, even seeing clients, like if clients are late or if they're, like super late sometimes, of course it's a little annoying. But as soon as I'm in the records, it's like, boom, like none of that matters. Because you see everybody, that's the beauty of it too. You see everybody as divine in their truest divinity, because we're all fractals of source. So, I mean, I can't speak enough about it. It started off as just a healing tool for me. And it kind of transformed into like the space that I just love to be in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're resonating in such a similar sort of mirroring effect, within Taoism. We speak on what we call the Wu Ji, the stillness between the breath in and the breath out, which is the Wu Ji, the oneness, the mother of all things, the Tao. And that's where you talk about like that charge you just got right now. That's what I'm speaking of. It's that 0 point as you speak of. It's so strange because, that seems more like a term, a physicist might refer to as, the scalar waves, whatever you want to call it, the God energy, the chi, as we call it within Taoism, or prana as another source of life force. It's that intelligence that goes beyond the electromagnetism that is this state. And that sort of consciousness that you're speaking of, that you access, is instantly beyond that electromagnetism. And now we're at a resonance that is at a frequency on a whole nother level that you can't define. It's just that pure light source. And that stuff is it gets me all excited and fuzzy inside when we speak on that, because it's so similar. The way you perceive it is the way I perceive it, yet it can be so different. And that's the beautiful part. There's no right or wrong way up the mountain, which I love. People always telling people that, you know what I mean? And that's kind of like, have you ever heard of a guy named Tom Campbell? Tom Campbell?
I have, but I don't. The name sounds familiar.
He's kind of like been around the block a little bit. He's probably in his 80s now, but he spent probably 60 years pioneering astral projection or out of body stuff, and he worked for a place called Bob Monroe Institute. Anyway, I had a conversation with him that went on for 3 or 4 hours, but it's more understanding how to get into that multi-dimensional state where you're instantly out of all things. So it's like, for me, when I teach people how to be in that state of consciousness, that resonance, you operate in all dimensions at once. There is no, like, how do I put it? There is no dimension. Yet a lot of people tend to perceive it that way. Once you enter into it, all bets are off as to how you are receiving it, but it has to be validated by you in this 3D. That's all it is. I mean, your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. That's how I share it. It sounds to me like you have a similar perspective on things. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love to use that quote too, that there are many paths up the mountain and all truths are valid. I mean, I use the parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant all the time to explain this. When I open people's records, I always start with going all the way back to source. So I tell them, I'm like, we're going to go as far back as possible. And that's the point at which you fractal. Because technically everything in existence is still in source. We're in consciousness. That's all it is. But when you fractal as a part of that infinite consciousness, it's like the parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant, which is you become one of the 6 blind men who's describing this elephant, aka life, aka source. So the perspective you have is not wrong. It's just you can, either in the course of that same life or multiple lives, get all perspectives around the elephant. But we all start off with one, because it's like that's as an individual soul, we're just piecing all the puzzle pieces together so we can see more of what source is, more of what life is. And the interpretation too, that basically everything that we talk about is just our own interpretation. We're all describing the same thing, which is like the parable of the 6 blind men and the elephant. We're all describing the elephant, but our interpretation of it is slightly different. So that's why everybody's truth is valid. There's no truth that is false. It's from the perspective of the observer.
Yeah.
So in observing like the elephant, I always tell people that. I'm like, yeah, you might start off here. This is the perspective of life that you have. And it's always, you know, it's basically a DMT trip, like a sober DMT trip. And I tell people that. I'm like, you don't have to take any drugs. You could just go into the records and it'll blow your mind, because the things that you can see, feel, experience are, it's next level. I mean, basically seeing people when you fractal, our first form is formless. So I would tell people when I first started seeing that, I was like, you know, I don't have any background talking about energy, this is not colloquial, you know, talk for me. Like I went to school for business. So this is like not in my wheelhouse, but I can't help but see what I see. And I try to explain it to the best of my ability. And I never gatekeep either, because I'm like, this is your records. So I'm going to tell you everything it is that I'm seeing, hearing in your records. And that's why I like to use a lot of analogies, because it helps to explain it better. So I'm just like, oh man, thankfully I love using examples. And it resonates with a lot of people too, because a lot of these spiritual concepts can be so esoteric that it just gets lost in translation to the common person who's just starting off the journey of remembrance. Because awakening is just remembrance. That's all it is. Remembering who we are, because that's why kids are that in tune, because they're that fresh from spirit. That's where we all go back to. Our essence is spirit, right? Like this is just a game that we're playing. So that's why everybody can get to that point. Everybody can go into the records, because we're all spirit, essentially. It's just based on your own interpretation of whatever it is that you see. Personally, I was never, and I still don't really listen to a lot of people. I don't like to read a lot of books on spiritual topics, because I like, well, one, I understand now. It's because I was never interested in it. I was just like, oh, okay, whatever I can like get in a quick little meme. Like I love memes. I'm like, a meme, yes, I like that. But now I understand. I'm like, in a sense, I was never meant to get into topics and books and other people's perspectives, because then it kind of needs the information when I go into someone's records. Then it's from the perspective of a book I read, of a movie I watched. So I literally, I mean, like people would think that I'm really boring, because I'm like, I like to stay home, or I like to go to the beach. I don't watch movies anymore. I don't read books. I'm kind of just in my own little bubble, and I'm fine with it. So
yeah. What's interesting. So this will be good to sort of get a deeper understanding of this, right? So when I access my pure source information from my teachers, so I have like, you know, a lineage. I'm ordained in 2 lineages of Taoism, one a 66 generation holder, another one 126 generation holder. And so I went through a processes, but first and foremost, the understanding is the ritual. You got beyond the ritual. The highest level of ascension within a Taoist model of metaphysics is channeling pure source information. So Lao Tzu, the Tao Te Ching, the transcriber of the Tao Te Ching, which is my teacher on a daily basis, he channeled the Tao Te Ching from the universe. So it's like, you know, there's always this access point. And so for me to get people familiar with their information, it's normally, I always give them like at least 9 lives leading up to this one, giving them a greater understanding of who they are. And they put those pieces together very quickly. It's like being slapped across the face 20 times. And so, you get that information that gives a deeper understanding of the true nature of who you are. And then, of course, I want to sort of have a greater sort of fundamental understanding of when you access the records. I mean, I can access information instantly at will about anybody. And that's just how I was trained, right? Yeah. So when I do psychic drive-bys, what I like to call black ops psychic drive-bys with my kids, because I've got 6 kids, so I taught them how to hypnotize people and do remote viewing and stuff like that. So they're all excited about, like you said, they learn instantly. Like I got my kids, I tape their eyes shut and they read information with their palms, and you just put it in front of them and they're able to capture it instantly. And it's like, that's how quickly they absorb this stuff. You and I get it. You get a charge from that. I get a charge because it's exciting. And so for me, I always say it's all under this blanket thing, right? So as a priest, I teach people clairvoyance, mediumship, channeling, healing, all that stuff. It's all under one blanket. But what do I call that? I just call that sensory perception. So how deep are you acquiring? So what's the limit of your sensory perception? People are like, well, what is that? It's like, what is there, five senses and then you get the 6th sense? Well, actually, you start off with 5 as a human being. And then, look, you can say something, think something, and speak it without using any of those senses. So there's 3 more, and it's all happening in your mind. So there you have 8. So where are we going with this? Well, there's no limit, in my opinion. As long as you have an imagination, you can go right there. And like, there's no limit to it. So when you access the Akashic Records, share with the audience a little bit more about, okay, so is it more like someone goes, I want to know about my past life, or I want to know about a piece of information about what happened to me at this point, or I want to know more about my present or my future. What kind of things are you requested from you to access, and how do you sort of perceive it, and what do you go into?
Yeah, so I probably should have asked you this. I don't know if I can share a screen.
Yeah, I think you can. You can share.
Okay.
There's a share screen. Yes, we see where it says present at the bottom of the screen there. Just hit.
Okay.
And that should come up.
Okay.
And I can click on it.
So I just want to share a screen on my PDF.
You should be able to just hit present.
Okay. Chrome tab, window, entire screen. I guess I'll do.
You should be able to. There you go. Look, add to stage. Here we go. Boom. Okay, here we go.
Okay. So I can't. Okay. So I'm just gonna kind of show it to you blind because I can't really see it. I can't see the little from Zoom. So when I do sessions, I basically start off with, I finally made a diagram. It took me forever. I would just audibly tell people about this.
Right.
Now, when I first started accessing records for other people, I started seeing, again, I like to say my egg cracked. I have no conception of anything. I'm like, show me anything. I'm not, and to kind of take it back to COVID, it kind of started with COVID too, in 2020, which is that for a lot of people who had the eyes to see, it's like, what? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So pulling away from the mainstream narrative for me started in 2020. I know other people it started much earlier. Some people are still in it. But I started to pull away because I'm just like, how can I trust anything that they're putting out? They're obviously lying to us. Now, fast forward to where we are now, thankfully, thankfully we all know, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of started with that, which is, and I stopped watching the news in 2020. Right. I didn't have cable TV since 2020. I have no desire to listen or watch the shows that I used to watch.
Right.
I was very enamored in like the Bravo shows. I laugh thinking about it now, like Real Housewives and stuff. Like, I was into all that stuff back then. I was not into spiritual stuff.
You know what? Nene is one of my favorites. So,
Oh yeah, I like her.
Yeah, you do you, and I'll do me, honey.
Yeah.
I'm good with Nene. But
Yeah, she's awesome. So I used to watch that, right? And then 2020, I was just like, what is this stuff? And then, fast forward to where we are now.
yeah.
That kind of helped me to not believe anything. I'm just like, well, I don't know. Like, I'm open to anything. You want to talk about flat Earth? I'm open to that. You want to talk about an alien that has 3 heads, purple eyes, and a yellow butt? Sure, talk to me. Like, I'm open to anything. So that openness, I like to say, helped me perceive better, because I was just a blank slate. Now, when I started doing readings for other people, I immediately perceived our multiverse, what to me looked like universes. And it took a few people that I read to fill in the dots of what they knew about themselves. And I was just like, oh, okay, this makes sense. Technically, I saw the void first, which is just black, opaque darkness. But I loved it. I mean, I love the void. I was like, man, this place is awesome. Of course, we're taught to be scared of the dark and whatnot, but it was a great space to be in. It was like what you started with when we first started talking. You're like, I'm kind of just, time is irrelevant with me. It could be 3-4 hours. I'm like, that's exactly what the void is. It's everything and nothing at the same time. So then I started perceiving what to me looked like universes. So this is where I started when I started doing readings for other people. And I like to say we're in universe 6. It was always presented to me like an hour clock of different universes. And I thought, wow, cool. When we fractal from source, we all drop into this multiverse and that's it. Now, what I've learned since then, this was about a year ago. What I've learned since then is that I never like to say I know everything, because I don't. Nobody does. But it's all from my perception. So I started seeing this, and then I had the question about 3 or 4 months later, is the multiverse the only thing that there is in existence? Are there other multiverses? And I was like, well, shoot, I never thought about asking that, because the Akashic Records are all about your questions. So I was like, I don't know, let's go and ask. Went in and asked, and sure enough, I started seeing other realms beyond our multiverse.
Yep.
So it's so vast, but this is the starting point. So I this is where I start now. I tell people, I'm like, all right, I work outside and I take you in. The plane is so far in the stratosphere, we can't even see land when we start our session, because I start in source. I want explaining someone's soul fractal helps tremendously. It explains like why you chose to do what you did, why you went to certain places. I never knew you could go all the way back to your soul fractal until I had another classmate that did it on me. And then I was like, what? I can do that too? So it's just expanding your mind, right? But I tell people inside out, we're all on planet Earth, because I don't know someone's level of consciousness until I'm in their records, because I don't tune in until I meet with you. I assume that people, and I put it out there, that people will find me if they're at a certain level of consciousness to handle this information. Even if they're not, then they have the capacity to. I'm just helping them unlock the cellular structure in them that's holding that. So we're all on planet Earth, which is in the Milky Way galaxy, which is in universe 6. And this green layer is the multiverse that I showed you. So this is what I thought life was. Sure enough, nope. There's a realm that I call the multiverse realm, because there's other realms beyond our multiverse. And then they started showing me, they're like, oh, okay, so you digested that, you integrated it, now you're ready for more. So the more that they showed me is that we're actually in what I call a cosmos. And I know Darius J. Wright calls it a construct, but I like to call it a cosmos. So what is our cosmos? Our cosmos, to me, right here is 11 layered realms. They're horizontal and vertically stacked, but there's actually upwards of 13. And I just found that out last week. I'm like, I don't know everything, but I only saw 11 for a very, very long time. But to kind of give you another visual, this is like the mapping system I show people. I'm like, we're going to start off at source. Source is basically everything in existence, but we're humans. We need to see a roadmap for it to make sense, right? So actually, this was where I thought after the multiverse, I was like, wow, we all go into our omniverse. And our cosmos is just one of the little stars. Obviously, this is a photo of the galaxy, but it looks very much like this. It's just void space and cosmos that look like stars in the sky. So our cosmos is just one of an infinite number of cosmos in existence. They're basically, I like to say they're like rides at Disneyland. So our omniverse is Disneyland. When we fractal, many people like to just come to this omniverse because it has so many rides possible. And all the rides, because there's an infinite number of them, they're always being created or destroyed. Because the biggest emphasis that I tell people all the time, I don't care if you're still programmed or not, it's still planting a seed, is that the antithesis of life is not satanic or demonic. It is stagnancy. That's it. So the antithesis of life is stagnancy. The moment a realm, the moment this earth becomes stagnant, meaning the yin and the yang, the moment there's too much polarity in one realm, then it'll become stagnant because it's overpowering it. It could be too much light. It could be too much dark. It's basically a seesaw that no longer teeter-totters. Now it's just stuck. And what kid wants to play on a seesaw that's stuck? No one. They're just like, get me off. This is boring. So that's what the realms, these cosmos are. They're created, they're destroyed, or they require an infusion of light to kickstart that realm and keep it going. So I thought for a while, for a couple of months, this was it. I was like, wow, we fractal from source and we all go into this omniverse. It was like, no, of course, that's not where it ends, right? So I was like, okay, this is not omniverse. This is the orange. There's actually primordial realms. And keep in mind, I'm sure I'm going to add on to this in time. This is just kind of to give people a visual. So I start backwards. I start with you at source as a fractal. You may have gone into primordial realms. The primordial realms are very etheric. They're basically like if we had a telescope that could barely make out outer space, that's what it would be because it's so far away. And it's so unlike our reality right now. So there's primordial realms that are in existence. So we fractal from source. And this is why my sessions, again, I try to stick to time, but I cover a lot in the session. So when people come to see me, I'm like, I got to do your roadmap first. We can skip, we won't go into the weeds with a lot of them unless people want to. But I'm basically taking them on a ride. And the ride is who you are from source, and every single life that one has lived throughout, if they've been to these different realms all the way into Earth, you can resonate with it because you're multidimensional. So there are just other aspects of who you are in your different lives. There's always a commonality, which is why people are like, wow, that's kind of like my life now, or I resonate with that in some capacity. But I start from here and I work my way down to land the plane, so to speak, to who you are on Earth. And Earth, when I land on Earth, it also includes any ancient civilizations, lives that you've lived here on Earth. Some people, once we get to this point, they have questions. Their questions could be anywhere from, personal love life to majority of the time. And here, I'll stop sharing the screen. So for majority of people, their questions are always, number one is, what is my purpose? Why am I here? For some reason, a lot of us, I've never thought about asking that before. Many people, because we're all going through this awakening, a lot of people are not resonating with their old life. And I was just ripped from mine. I mean, I had a very traumatic way of doing it. So I tell people, I'm like, you can have either the hard or the slow route. And then I like to use a rubber band example. I'm like, your life is basically like this, and you're pulling away if you're not in alignment or with your purpose that you chose for this life. It's like a rubber band that's pulling away. What's happening right now for everybody in the world is it's going to be a snapback. So that the rubber band is going to go and it's going to snap you back into alignment. That snapback can be very traumatic, like it was for me, or it could be very soft because you're kind of like working your way onto it. So number one, a lot of people want to know, what is my purpose? Well, why am I here? A lot of, I would say, people that are in the 30s to like late 40s age range. I don't know if you want to call them like indigo star seeds or what. It's a big deal because a lot of us don't resonate with this reality. It's kind of like we drank the Kool-Aid. Now we're waking up and we're like, what the hell is this place? Like, why? Thankfully, we're in a position to change it, which is why that question is so prominent. And then the other question too that a lot of people want to know, if they're, everybody's kind of pretty much on this ascension journey, this new earth path, whatever it is you want to call it, the awakening, the remembrance journey. Everybody kind of wants to know, okay, well, what is this going to look like for me? Like, am I meant to do spiritual work? Like, am I meant to do grid work? Am I meant to, like, what am I supposed to do? How is my ascension journey going to look? And then it turns into like a future thing where I'm like, okay, this is only at this point in time of your reading, this date and this time, what the probabilities could be, because you're a master manifester of your own reality. You're your own creator. So whatever you decide 5 minutes from now could change course. But those are two of the dominant questions, I would say, in a full session. I also do remote sessions where I do a pre-recorded one and you just ask me anything and everything. And I tell people, I'm like, there are no limits in the records of what you can ask because it's your records. I've also, with certain people, I won't say names, but all the teachers that I've had worked off of a rule book, which is you can't access the records of people without having their explicit consent. You can't access the records of property if it's private. You can't access the records of children.
Sorry, I'm rolling my eyes.
Right. So this was what I
don't mean to roll my eyes, but
no. That's the point I'm trying to get to, is that my entire life I played by the rules. I followed what society told me to do. I was the good girl. So when you gave me rules, I was like, oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. And then the question was posed by a parent who was trying to open the records, wanted to understand her child, I think was 8 years old. And I was just like, well, I can't open your records for your child. Like, your child's underage. And then the discussion amongst our classmates was like, well, why not? Technically, there are no rules. So I went through that as well. I went through integrating that of being like, rules are man-made, just as religion is man-made. There are no rules. If I can't access the records for whatever reason, if I'm blocked, then so be it. Like, maybe what I like to tell people too, what I had to learn to do was constantly rephrase the question. If you're not getting a response, it's because your question is too broad. It's just like typing into Google, hey, Google, tell me the history of the United States. Google's like, I'll give you 1 billion answers. What do you want to know? Okay, tell me the history of California in 1960 in Santa Barbara, in this one street. Like, what happened here? So being very specific with the questions, then you'll get answers. I've heard of people being blocked. I mean, I personally have never been blocked from accessing someone's records because I genuinely am just trying to help you. That's it. Like, I'm telling you, I don't gatekeep. I don't even want to deal with, you learn the records. There's masters, teachers, and loved ones, right? This is all from me. I know I tell people, I'm like, however you learn is how you want to learn. That's how I learned it too. But what I've come to learn is I don't know who the masters, teachers, and loved ones are. I don't know who they are. So I take them out of my opening. And I, like you said, you technically people are always in their records. That's what they don't realize. You're always accessing this information. So whether or not you want to say a prayer, a mantra, whatever it is, I still use a prayer because and I record it for clients too, because I'm like, hey, you might as well practice this. And saying a prayer or whatever it is you want to say just helps kind of like get into that headspace of concentration. That's it. But technically, you don't need to say anything. And my quick and dirty method of accessing the records is to open your heart, go into your heart space, expand, and then ask, because all the questions are in the portal, which is your heart space. And growing up Christian, that was demonized. And I didn't realize that until I started going in the records. And I even told my teacher too, I was just like, do you know that if I'm in my heart, I can get into the records like this, I can get information like this, you know? But in Christianity, I forget the scriptures. I was very much into it years ago. It talks about the heart lies. Don't listen to the heart. Don't trust your heart. Trust God. And I was like, man, I was bamboozled, you know?
Well, I think people forget history.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, the human timeline cycles through three major events that people resonate with: spirituality, atheism, and religion. And it just depends on where you're at on the timeline that you're embodied with that. Right now, anyone that sort of like is potentially religious based, which, Taoism is both religious and sort of like a philosophy per se, but quite frankly, we're all metaphysics. Up to 800 years ago, it's quite common to use mysticism and spiritual entities and spirits and energy and all that stuff. That was part of the scientific model, but they threw that out because that was way too close to home. And the idea within Taoism, all we do is we access direct source information, and we're the advisor to all the seven emperors of China's history, and we're the first one to get executed because we hold the keys to the information, the magic, and all that kind of good stuff, because there's no limit. There's no limit to what you can access. And so I want to sort of like look at more. You say you sort of get clear and you embody just when you do these sort of like readings for people. Do you have any sort of like, we have like energetic practices to develop what we call the internal alchemy, the infrastructure, the dantians, so that I can separate electric from magnetic energy and transmute it and either use it for healing, manifestation, magic, whatever it is. There's a palpability that comes with aligning these energy centers and having a real mastery over them. Do you use just you're accessing the records to just clear or synchronize? I'm not even going to say clear, just synchronize your energetic fluidity, or do you have a practice of your own that you use outside of the prayer?
So before I do records or Reiki on anybody, I just do a clearing for myself, and it's very quick. And it's kind of evolved into, I had to work a lot on feeling again, to be honest, because my clairvoyance and my clairaudience was always very strong, but especially post-accident, I didn't want to feel. Like, I kind of shut down the clairsentience aspect of it. But that's been coming in very strong lately. So I can actually feel what it is I'm doing, not just seeing it. So I see energy. I would tell people that. Even my Akashic Records teacher was like, how do you do Reiki and you don't even feel it? And I'm like, I see it. I was like, I see energy. And I ask, so the clearing that I do is it feels, and it's funny because I work the opposite way, right? Like I am open to, because my egg was cracked. Now I go back into, okay, how do I explain this? Did somebody talk about what this thing is, right? I try to get validity that way if I need to explain it to someone. So the validity I have about that is what, to me, it feels like Kundalini energy. Because when I clear, because energy runs both ways, but I can clear and it feels, or I bring it in a lot of times, like I'll bring in energy and then use myself to like transmute, or just like, it's like a bright light, like, because I see it more, but it's basically like using pure source light to do everything. That's it. I don't want to work with any in-betweens. Like, I don't want any in-between people. I just want pure source. So I'll use source light, source energy to clear myself and everything that's in my space. And then I go into the session. I really don't like to, even sometimes I had to learn to stand in my own power in early on when I was doing readings for people, because I was starting to get interference from just other like energetic beings and stuff, to the point where I had to use my mom voice, like get out. I don't want any untainted interpreters.
Yeah.
So when I do sessions too, it's also what I find key too is I think Jesus did this, or the people that were Jesus, is that we're all interconnected. We're all the same. And nobody is actually less than. That's just, what we think. But we're all pure source energy. So it's remembering that I am you, you are me. I love you as though you are me.
You had me at hello.
Mm-hmm.
You had me at hello. I mean, this sort of understanding is a real interesting one, because I had to look at it 3 or 4 times before I was like, okay, whatever. Your auric field is just one big rainbow. I was like, you know what? I'm like expecting it to be something, because most people have an affiliation with something, and you were just like all source, which I find really interesting to perceive it from this perspective. But it without asking questions, you just answered it for me.
Yeah, that's what I heard Jesus did too. And I'm not saying I'm Jesus, but it's remembering people as being whole. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just the avatar. This is the game that we're playing. We're all fine. So when it comes to healing, what I tell people all the time, if I do Reiki sessions, I'm like, I'm not doing the work. You're doing the work. I'm just helping you. I'm holding the space for you. I'm holding the frequency so that you can do it. Because I like to tell people, I'm like, when you cut your finger, I don't heal your finger. You heal your finger. But we can speed it up, right? Like we can ask your guides, we can ask your team to come in, we can ask source. It's like whatever mode you want to go in. But people, every single person has the ability to do all. It's just stripping away the layers. That's it. That's all it is.
What would you say would be, for me, I tend to just, wherever I go, it's like physical healings, right? So if I see it just like the flesh wiggles before your very eyes and transmutes back to its original state, whether it's a broken bone, a tear, a tumor, whatever. It happens instantly, and it's kind of crazy, and it's been going on for 30 years. What would you say is a highlight for your sort of like experiencing this stuff?
Oh man. The highlight. I guess I'll give you 3 off the top of my head. The number one, if I'm taking it from Akashic Records, number one is the fact that I can go back to source.
Yeah.
I never even thought that. Like I didn't think of asking that question. I didn't think of going there. And that's why I like to tell people, to remind them, I'm like, you can too, because you are also a fractal of source. It's like doing your genealogy and going all the way back to find your ancestors. It's like, look, we all have a common ancestor in that source. So if I can get to that point, so can you. That's been the biggest highlight, because that's the number one thing that was used to manipulate people. So a very, very long time ago, we knew this. But then the powers that be, the people that be, the colonialists, whatever, came in, and what did they do? They did what they did. What better way to manipulate people than to make them forget who they are? So helping people to remember who they are has been number one. Is actually being like, I can go to source, I can see source, that's been the highlight, to be honest. When it comes to healing, like what you just said with like resetting, physical and stuff, everything is possible because it's all through your mind, right? As much as somebody can, if they believe that they're going to get cancer, so they manifest cancer, or they get a cancer diagnosis and they're like, no way, I'm not going to die tomorrow. I'm not going to die in 2 years. They can beat that because it's all through their mind. It's all through, how much they want to overcome it. So when it comes to healing, the first thing that ever tripped me out when I was doing a session was I saw etheric surgery done. And since then, I've seen many crazy things. But the first time I ever saw etheric surgery, I was just like, what? Like they're going into the crown and then they're, you know, that tripped me out because I could see details. I could see in quantum touch, which is actually what I learned a couple years ago. You know, you think, oh, it's your imagination. But they would say, okay, go all the way in, see the bone. You know, if you're going to do any kind of mending or repairs, you can see where the tear is or whatever it is. I could see that kind of stuff. Like I was just like, wow. So I would try it, right? But when it came to etheric surgery, the confirmation from that was actually the client that I was working on does healings herself, and she is pretty intuitive. And what she told me, the session was over and we both jumped back on the camera, and she was like, I gotta tell you what happened. I was like, I gotta tell you what happened. She confirmed she saw the same thing going on, was that her team was doing the etheric surgery. And I was just like, I can't believe you saw that, because I saw the same exact thing. And what I've come to learn is that I'm just a bridge for for your team, highest level guides, angels, higher selves, and you. I'm just a bridge on the physical plane here with you, but I can basically hold the space, bring you to the same frequency so that it's a bridge. And that kind of work can get done. And then the third thing was, I was just like, shoot, if I could see all this stuff in Reiki sessions, I try it out in my real life. So I was playing with my son, and he, you know, we were playing airplane. So you kind of prop them up with your feet and then you hold them up like this. So I was playing airplane with him, and then he fell backwards. And then I heard like his wrist. I heard bones. I couldn't tell if it was finger or wrist like snap. And I was just like, oh no. All I could think of was, I'm gonna have to take you to the emergency room. So instinctively, I just grabbed the arm that I heard the sound from. And I just visualized like a couple seconds prior to that happening, resetting it. And it was like, I just kind of let it happen, however I want it to happen. And what I saw in the reset was just all white structure, back to the template, the structure of this, using light, source light, to just reset it. And like 2 seconds before this even happened, just reset it back to that point. And then I was just like, oh no, is it going to work? And then a couple minutes later, then he started moving it like nothing happened. And I was like, if I didn't hear the snap, I would have been like, it's just my imagination. But I heard it snap. And when he moved it around, I was like, oh thank God, I don't have to take you to the ER, you know? But it's stuff like that.
It's a validation.
Wow. Yeah, it's validation. You know?
For me, it's validation. It has to be real in this 3D reality. You know, seeing auras and energies and everything was kind of like my thing early on in the game. And, you know, it's teachable. I teach all my students how to see all the energy and the information. And the information comes up instantly. Like you have this incredible insight, and you go through the layers to get information. I like to do drive-by psychic readings all the time on people, where it's just like, hey, do you want me to just tell you your mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual state right now? And they're like, sure, magic man, give me a reading. I take my kids down to the Strip, and we do this for fun. We hypnotize people and do readings and stuff. And they go, oh, sure. And it starts with the first energy center, which in Taoism we call the earth, is the first energy center. Then the second one is what someone will call a root chakra. And by the time I get to the sexual energy, they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is real. I'm like, hey, look, bro, all I'm doing is reading what's in the field. And so when you look at the energy, it gives you the excess and deficiency. So we look at the 5 elements, the 5 organs, and you have emotions to virtue, and you have excess emotions, and you want to reveal the virtue. And so that comes with regulating the synchronicity of it. And each energy center has its own excess and emotion, excess emotion to virtue regulation. And so you just instantly read the state that someone's in, and they go, you don't even know me, bro. How do you even have a clue? Because I think the biggest thing, and I really like the way you say that, for me, it has to be the present moment. There's no place person. I'm no place person or thing. That's the only way it can happen. That's how I access it instantly, is because I'm now. I'm not San Qing. I'm not the computer. I'm not anything. I'm just I'm the information. I'm the universe. I'm not, when it's healing, it's really amazing how you said that, because healing to me, for me to do a healing, I don't sit there like, yeah, this happens. You have kids. I have kids. I've got 6 kids. They do silly things, like, they're chasing each other and one of them runs into the wall. Next minute their head's the size of a watermelon, and it happens. And what happens with that is instantly, I've taught my kids how to do it, and the visual effect is whatever the color of that stagnation is, and the second they run the energy through it, it magnifies to phosphorus, white light, and gold. And that's when you hit the point. You got it, and it'll just instant. They literally count into it, and it'll be effective. For me, I just look at something like, if they eat dirt and they've got a lip the size of a watermelon, I'll just stand there and I'll have everyone go, watch this, shrink, 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 and it will disappear before your very eyes. Something that might take, either a day or two, a week. If you have a sprained ankle, a broken bone, it'll happen right there, and you'll see it. The most important thing is seeing it. It's not like, oh, it's a maybe. No, it's now.
Yeah.
No, I really love that, the way you talk about it, because you and I are just shop talking right now. But what that does is it levels you up to a level of consciousness that maybe you were looking at something at a certain angle, and now you absorb that, just as I absorb everything you share, and it levels your consciousness. I mean, that's the way it works for me. For me, consciousness is a table. You're sitting at one end, I'm sitting at the other. We have an orange in the middle of the table. You say tomato, I say tomato. It's a facet. Within Taoism, we call it a facet of the diamond. Consciousness is one big diamond. It's just a different facet. But it's really cool the way that you're perceiving your entry into the layers of information, that how you access it. Because I've, at one point, I really enjoy doing that. I'll go outside of what we call this dimension, and I go through. I think I went through like 36, 38, 45 dimensions. I was out there for like, I don't know, 16 hours. It was fun, but it's one phosphorus white light going into complete darkness, and how we're able to access it from my training is, it's between the black and white that is the entry point to go to any dimension you want, or any scenario you want, or any piece of source information that you want. So you go from phosphorus white light to complete void and darkness, back to phosphorus white light to complete void and darkness. And that's the in between, the Wu-Ji, the 0 point, is where you can go off and get anything you want. Does that make sense?
That totally makes sense, because to kind of refer to the diagram, which is, I only use the diagram so that other people are very visual learners too, right?
Yeah.
But that's actually how I see it. So when I'm in source, I'm just in white light. That's it. I'm in white light. They're, formless. There's just knowing. Yeah. But transiting into form, even if it's formless, there's still form to it. There's density. There's something to it that's perceptible. Then I love the way that you put it, because that totally makes sense to me. You transit into a void. Yeah. Because then, now that you're in darkness, things become visible. It's just the backdrop, and then light is just the information source for it. So that totally makes sense to me, because that's how I see it too. Absolutely. And the healing stuff, I mean, that's actually one thing that, if I've just seen some crazy stuff, crazy good.
Yeah.
Things that'll blow your mind. Yeah. And I'm like, that's why I have no desire to watch movies. I'm like, man, the records, like everything that's in existence will blow your mind. It's better than a movie. You can't even script it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I love that you shared about healing with your kids and teaching them this, is I've talked to another friend who's, we're kind of go back and forth with this too. And I told her, I was like, all the stuff that we see, all the stuff that I know is in existence. I'm like, I want to bring that to the physical. I want to teleport again. I want to do this kind of stuff. I know it's possible. Mm-hmm. So even too, I was telling another friend, I was like, when it comes to healing and everything, my dad actually passed away from cancer. And I was with him the whole journey, all the way to the end where he was completely emaciated. And I was like, that, from the records, I understand. I'm like, we all choose how we're going to exit. So I wouldn't take that away. I wouldn't take that away from anybody. I'm like, if you chose that, like, as much as I want to help and heal, you chose that for a reason. But if I could, especially with cancer, I don't want to say if I could, we will. It's going to happen in our lifetimes. When it comes to healing that sort of thing, I'm just like, why the heck not? Like we're all capable of doing that type of healing. Healing, especially cancer, because I mean, it's crazy what it does to the body. All the way to the point of telekinesis, of teleporting, So I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of actually the next step. Because I see it, I know it's possible. It's just integrating it into this reality. So what you said, you're just like, oh, look, shrink, 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 shrink. I was like, that's it. I was like, that's just one aspect of everything else that we can do when we bring the abilities that are innate to us back into here. It's just there's so much density here that it's like, how do we do it again? How do we do it? How do you do it? How do we do it in this realm? But I know everything is possible. Like the trajectory of where our world is going in a very short time period.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not scared of it. And nobody should be scared of it. We should, like, if anything, just be in celebration for what's going to be happening with the world, because it's going to be so much better than where we're at right now today. I mean, today is actually pretty much leaps and bounds from, 4 years ago, but even more so where we're going. I mean, it's, it's hard and difficult, but it's beautiful too at the same time.
Yeah. I can definitely see that you through your own admission, you're like, I'm working on my sensory, the feeling. And it's like, that's supercharged already. Just, that's one of the things that I love is first and foremost is the visceral kinesthetic stuff. Mm-hmm. And that, that just changes instantaneously from everything, because it's all the feeling. If you're thinking, you're not knowing. If you're knowing, you're feeling. I mean, it's all of it. Every part of everything we do is that knowing by the feeling. That's it. In my opinion.
Yeah, I like that you said that. That's actually the key to bringing it into the physical reality.
Yeah,
that totally makes sense. Because I'm just like, I'm missing a piece. It's still working on feeling. But to kind of go back to where I shut this down, like I've always been very empathic, to the point of where it's scary. I mean, you would resonate with this too, of feeling literally the pain of other people. And I'm just like, I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel somebody's sciatica, but it's natural. So I naturally would be like, I don't want to feel it. So shut it down. It kind of, I would say about 5 years ago, that was when I was pregnant with my son and his father left. That's where I shut it down completely. I was like, I don't want to feel, because I'm either going to take myself out of this reality completely, or I'm going to stay here and not feel it at all. So I actually went on antidepressants when I was pregnant. And it literally did exactly what I wanted it to, which was I didn't want to feel. So I didn't feel. I didn't even dream when I was on it. It was the first and only time I was on antidepressants. But it got me through that time period, and it did exactly what it needed to do. And then I cold turkeyed off of it 6 months later. But that, I would say, that kind of like stunts people too, especially, COVID highlighted it, but it was always kind of there. And I could say this from doing sessions with other people, is that a lot of us that are incarnate right now, we're not earth souls. So this wouldn't have been our 25th, 1004th life. Many of the souls that are incarnate right now in this day and age are from many other realms outside of Earth. And for whatever reason, we decided to come here at this point in time. So who we innately are, it's kind of like a disconnect between not just the energies of Earth, but also everything that's happening here. We came here to change it, to anchor in these frequencies that are so innate to us, that are like second nature to us here. But that disconnect, the not wanting to feel, is because of what this realm is. So, so for a lot of people, they struggle with mental health. And there's a deeper reason behind it. It's not just like, I'll go outside, get some sun, eat better food. It's much, much deeper than that, because on a soul level, this is not where we're not used to this, So feeling, I like that. I like that you pointed that out. It's like, no, you got to feel it to link in the two, bring it into the physical.
Well, because of your sensory perception, it's kind of like, I understand it because I have the same perception. It's like seeing every color, every aura, everything is present, and you can tap into it at will. That's the only upgrade through your own admission is a sensitive, palpating sort of thing. But you're already there. I mean, you're already oscillating right now. We're already had pulsating moments between the two of us through this conversation. So it's again, from your own admission, it's like, I guess I'll microdose it the way I want it. Right? Right? Microdose it the way you want it.
Yeah.
Because I attribute my first experience with a physical healing was literally two days after I started this stuff. Like over 30 years ago. It was like an instant thing. So I did a crash course in distance healing back in those days. And so at the time, a friend of mine called me and she said, I can't meet you. And I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. I just sprained my ankle. It's the size of a watermelon. I'm like, oh, that's too bad. We'll catch up in a week or two. I'm like, cool. And then I just finished a day of training and I was like, whoa. She's like, what? Yeah, rotary phone, you know how it is, old school. What do you want? I said, let me try something. And this is where I think you and I are very much the same. It's like you take something at face value, accept it as it is right here, right now. There's nothing more to it. I'm not playing with it. It just is. It's right now. And so she goes, what do you want? I said, look, I'm going to do a bunch of things in my head. I'm going to read through this script. And at the end, I'm going to chant what they call an incantation. Just listen, just bear with me. And she's like, sure, hurry up. I don't have all day. I'm like, okay. So I read through the script. And then at the end, the incantation was this: heal, 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 heal. And then I heard, what the fuck? And I'm like, what happened? She freaked out. She goes, what are you doing? I said, what? She goes, my ankle just shrunk before my very eyes back to its original state. I'm standing on it right now. I'm like,
nice.
Yeah. And I said, get the fuck out of here. I was like, bullshit. So I drove over to her house and she ran to me, gave me a big hug. And I'm like, what is going on? And her mother was there. And it was actually her mother's house. And she's puffing away cigarettes, right? This is like something out of a Hollywood movie. And I'm like, what, this is a game, right? Because I just read, she goes, no, I'm not kidding you. Here's the before, here's the after photo. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, this is unreal. And the mother's puffing away and she's like, her idea of a good time is cigarettes and vodka every day, pack of cigarettes and vodka, right? So she's puffing away and I'm like, okay, I don't know what I don't exactly want to put the pieces together. I did the thing and it worked. I'm still not 100% believing you, but you show me photo, sure, whatever. Then the mother goes, always knew you were a healer. I'm like, what are you saying? And she's puffing away. I always knew you were a healer. I'm like, okay. Well, I'm kind of on my path, but it's like I'm still not buying this whole photo thing. And she's standing there. I'm like, she goes, I kid you not. And I'm like, sure. the mother goes, I need you to take care of me. I'm like, what are you talking about? Well, I got this problem with my foot. I said, look, I got to go. I'm digesting. I got to go. But yeah, you come back tomorrow and take care of my foot. I'm like, what do I look like to you? I'm green. I just started this thing. And she's like, come back tomorrow and take a look at my foot. I'm like, okay. So I come back. At that point in between that, I channeled Latsu. So Latsu is my teacher, right? So I'm getting direct clairaudience, and he's having conversations with me. And this is already something I'm contending with. Then I'm doing the physical thing. And then all this stuff is sort of like not making sense to me at all. And I'm like, okay, so I've got this direct source information. Now that's a whole nother story. If you understand what it's like to channel an energy and be lit up like a Christmas tree, and people are like roasting their marshmallows on the outside of your transmission. It's this type of heat. I'm sweating right now. Now, when I got back to her and I took a look at what she wanted me to look at, which was her foot, I was like, I'm kind of contending with many things. And then straight after that, this is where it gets really interesting. So I'm contending with many things, and I lean down to look at her foot. I take the sock off. She cannot see herself. She has a distended stomach. She's sitting on an armchair with her feet up on it. And she doesn't do doctors, right? No doctors. Her family heavily into Scientology, a lot of other things. I don't even want to go there. But in any case, she doesn't do doctors. So I pull the sock off, and the foot is gangrenous.
Oh.
And I go, what the? I go, what? In my mind, I'm going, what the? And she's like, so how's it going down there? I'm like, I honestly, I was like, let's just. In my mind, I'm like, we'll take you to the hospital.
Yeah.
And Latsu's like, no. I'm like, what do you mean no? I'm already insanely communicating with you as a weird thing. This woman's daughter is telling me she just got a healing her ankle, and I'm looking at this gangrenous foot that I'm not a doctor, but let's cut it off. And this is all going from a really absurdly weird, very dense physical experience from 3D, where I was into bodybuilding and powerlifting, and then I moved straight into metaphysical internal.
Okay.
So I was a power lifter, and I went into the whole spiritual route of I need to go inside. And so, I mean, it gets even deeper. But the long story short is
But you knew the body well from doing that.
I guess. I mean, yeah, I was a power lifter and a bodybuilder for 10 years. And basically, in a nutshell, I watched that tissue go back to pink, fleshy color in 40 minutes.
Dang.
I'm not kidding you.
You guys should have like a video camera.
Well, once I got a hang of that, when he showed me that and that happened, my favorite thing to do was take a sebaceous cyst and I would heat it up and it would raise to the top and it would open a head up and just pop. Like I love to pop zits.
Yeah.
And there was this one woman who had this probably a cantaloupe-sized cyst on her breast from where she was breastfeeding. And her and I witnessed this, right? Where the thing came to the surface, opened up, a liter of pus poured out into the sink in front of our very eyes, and then sealed back up with our eyes.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like that's called.
That's called crazy.
Yeah, the buildup. Yeah. From.
Well, there's a condensing of energy that takes place where it's so palpable that you're schwitzing, and the heat that was coming out. The biggest point was the flesh opened up, the pus poured out, and then it's sealed back up.
Nice.
Now, I find it interesting, but not so unreal. With the more I share the stories, the more people I come across that have had experiences that are similar. Now, this is, from me, a normal run-of-the-mill experience on a daily basis for physical healings. So I sort of like have not an expectation, but I just know. So with Tom Campbell, he was on the podcast, and he has a very similar experience. Most people come to me, it's like, I heard about you. My mother's on death's door. She's in a coma, and she's going to die. I said, don't worry about it. She's not going to die. They're like, wow, I guess you are what they say you are. And I'm like, look, all I do is tap into the information. And sure enough, the next day, grandma wakes up Vitals are regulated. The doctor's like, what is going on? This is crazy. Now, Tom, who's the astro guy, he calls it the large consciousness system. And he's done that quite a few times for other people. So it's like he calls it the probability. For me, I just like access the Tao, the Latsu. Latsu would be your version of the Akashic Records. And I just use that direct source information. But it's like, you have to have no doubt. There has to be a fearless state. You have to be in this present moment. It can't be oh, maybe it'll work. Oh, my ego's going to be really hurt if grandma doesn't wake up. No, I just access the information. They say, no, she's not going to die. And I go, that's fine. Well done. That's it. I'm not like going, oh, let me take a closer look and I'll call in my guides and get it really going hot. And that's not that when, you know, just like you through your own admission with your son, it's happening now. Now, I don't even go that deep and it's like a practice sort of thing, but you're now. So if you are the now, you're not asking yourself if you're the now. You don't go, oh, universe, can you help me heal this present moment? No, you are the present moment. So the shit will change. If you say it's going to heal, it's healed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say I haven't really dabbled with physical healing as much as the records.
Well, it's no different.
I feel like that's kind of
no different.
That's kind of like a next step. I think I held off on it. Actually kind of stopped it, to be honest. I stopped offering Reiki towards the end of last year going into this year because like if I had healing sessions, I'm like, I don't hold back because it's just like, it's exactly like what you said. Right. I'm like, we're going to get this thing done and we're going to do it now. Like I'm a very much a rip the Band-Aid off kind of person, you know? I'm like, I just want to get it over with. Just rip the Band-Aid off. I'm that type of person. So I approach healing in the same way. Now it started to, it kind of got me worried because in some sessions towards the end of last year, and so I'm very specific about if I'm going to do it now with the type of clients. I'm just like, for some people, their integrations, and now I actually ask for the integrations to actually be easier on people because it's very heavy-handed. So I think the same etheric surgery client, she came back a couple months later and then she left the session. It was another crazy session. But then she left and she's like, I had a headache all day. And I was like, man, that's the last thing I want to do. I don't want to hurt people, you know? But I'm at the point now where I'm just like, you know what? If you want to do this, let's do this. So I am very specific with the wording, almost to the point of like one of my clients last week, she was like, I read the description for this healing. She was like, no vanilla, ladies. She's from Europe somewhere. I was like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's kind of like, well, you know, if you want to heal, right? I like what you're saying. There's nothing is happening outside of this except for right now. So let's do it right now. But if there's any doubt on the client's end, I'm like, like I was doing a session yesterday and we came to her heart chakra and I was just trying to help her release, unblock, release. And we were there for a while because she just didn't want to release it. And I told her, I was like, I can't do this for you. Only you can do this for you. I can help you, but only you can do it. So finally, it's kind of just having a cheerleader on your side, right? And then that's what I love about Reiki, because that's why I got into it, was more so for the mental emotional aspects of it. And I didn't really get so much into the physical side, even though it's all one and the same, you know? Where you talking about your stories, I'm just like, oh man, I want to try some stuff now.
Well, what it does is it just evokes it within you. That's all.
Yeah.
So then you're like, well, I'm having what I want. I want whatever he's having, and you get exactly that. That's, I mean, when there's no limitation and you accept it at face value, I call it you're childlike in your nature. It'll just happen. It'll happen instantaneously.
Same.
And you know,
I say that all the time too. I'm like, childlike, not childish.
No, right.
Getting back to that same point.
Just innocent and accept everything at face value.
Yeah.
And that's like something that most people just get in their head over. But that's how you witness healing. That's how you access instantaneously all
Mhm.
things. And I do this. I sometimes I'll get people to start with like just bending metal as a good reference point. So you start
Oh
off
yeah,
with
like the spoon.
a little force, and you put your
Okay.
attention intention to the center, and it bends and melts like butter. Then the next graduation is holding a
Mm,
spoon, and with your attention intention, you melt that like a candle. And then finally, the graduation of graduation is holding a fork, and with your attention intention, and that's that charge you got right now. You know what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Is the prongs bend from either direction with your attention intention. Now, flesh is no different, because when you see it, it literally mutates before your very eyes and reverts back to its original state. And so you'll see it with your eyes open. As you and I see things similarly, it will
Mhm.
just start to wiggle and shift and wiggle and shift and wiggle, and it'll just keep going back. And
Mm,
it's as real as the day is long. And when you experience it and you witness it, amen to that. You know what I mean?
yeah. I like that. I did try, gosh, I think maybe a year or two ago, probably 2 years ago. I tried the bending the spoon thing. I was just like, I don't know what I'm not getting it. It's
You're
funny because
almost you're almost
yeah.
there. Like take your hands right now, like
Okay.
this, right? Okay. I'm going to drop in that energy right now. Boom. Now that palpable magnetism you're feeling, just
Mhm.
palpate it, right?
Yeah.
You palpate that.
My chi
That
ball.
right. Now
Yeah.
let's just amplify it a little bit, higher the resonance.
Mhm.
Right. Right. Here we go. That's it, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, right there. That is what we're talking about. That density. And now
Mm,
let's hit the resonance a little bit more. And like for someone who says they can't feel anything, damn girl, you're feeling it.
yeah.
And it's dense. It's dense as anything. And
Mm,
it's like this is what we speak of. That
mm,
is the very moment. This is the moment when you want to bend something, you're going to feel that, right?
gotcha.
So that
Okay.
that resonance right there is that moment that you just think it and it melts like butter right there. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah. That
Yeah.
that
I
that
like that.
pulsating density,
Yeah.
and it's a different that's chi. That's not like electromagnetic, lower frequency, certain vibration, and that's why you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
like thick shit right here. Yeah, it is thick. It's super thick because
Yeah.
it's the universal, and you know what universal, it's right now. And
Mhm.
so this is the stuff that you this is all this is just evoking what you already know, and it's bringing you right there again. And so
Yeah.
that's where you create that malleable density. And so I like to do that with people. When I'm doing it with people, I'll be like, okay, here, this is it. And they're like, holy shit, I didn't do this, or I didn't have to think about it. I didn't, because it's right now, man. I can just think it and it's realized. And people go, whoa. And then I go, okay, let's check out some of the vortices in your house. So they're like, what are you talking about? Well, you got half a dozen right now. Let's go and check them out. And then, holy crap, oh, you've got a bunch of entities. Let's go and check out the entities'
Mhm.
frequency and energy. And they move into and step into embody the entity's frequency and their whole auric field, and they can feel the whole thing through their whole body. They step out and go, whoa, that really is real. And I'm like, it's very real. And so
Yeah.
what's even funnier is all the vortices that I showed you, go finish the day off, go to sleep, wake up, go back to exactly the spot that I pointed out to you, and then realize it's still there and shit yourself and go, hang on, I didn't do anything. I wasn't in the mindset. I wasn't, because it's real. It's not a figment of your imagination. None of
Right.
this stuff is. And that's that stuff. Your attunement, your sensitivity to the perception is real. Everything else is a lie. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's
It's
it.
yeah, it's interesting because I was into qigong before
Mhm.
too, and I always tell myself, I was like, you got to keep it up. You got to keep it up. It's kind of like going to the gym and having accountability. Um, But it's funny because I've only taken a hero dose of shrooms once,
Mm-hmm.
and this was when after I learned to read the records, and it only happened once because I don't like feeling out of control of my body. And the same thing happened with what you were talking about, the seeing it move. It's funny because it's different from seeing it physical eyes and this eye, right? Because everything I see it through here. But actually seeing it physically through my physical eyes, seeing things melt and warp with my physical eyes, I was like, this is awesome.
Right.
And all the way the next morning, it was basically like I was so out of body coming back the following morning that I instinctively did Qigong because I was like, I got to ground my energy. I got to get back in. So I always knew of the Qi ball, like growing your Qi ball. And I could always feel it, you know, and then I think you're like, you put in your Dantian too.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be Harry Potter beginning stuff. Yes. Yeah, just kind of like it's always there, but it's always nice to, hey, let's start with the Qi ball and insert it into the Dantian. But like, for example, let's do this. You put your hands out, you're feeling it. Let's put in a specific energy, right? So I'm just going to put in that color, which is red, the energy of the sacred form, the frequency. And as my OGs, all my students, they love watching these episodes because you can experience it when you're watching it. And so now you've got this crazy pulsating energy. Your fingers feel frosty white like they're in a freezer burn, energetically dense, and now inject it into your lower dantian, and you will experience, because the difference is you made a very good point. You are me, I am you. What are you afraid of? Yeah. This is the problem with all these systems, right? Is, hey, let's go. You got to protect yourself. You got to do this. This is the first mistake people make. You want to be separated from direct source and pure source information. Keep wrapping yourself up with the 24 angels and the light source and all the rest of it, because you are me, I am you. What am I afraid of? Nothing.
Bingo. That's exactly it. I shared that this past weekend, actually. It was a very unpopular opinion, but I shared it because I was like, well, then I'm going to say it, right? So what I shared with people on my social media was, I was like, cord cutting. Mm-hmm. You can never cut cords because we're all interconnected. It's so big. It's like, cut the cord. That person's toxic. That energy is negative. That's a bad entity. It's just you. Like, we're all interconnected. So, of course, you can remove your focus from it, sure. But you can never truly cut cords because we're all one. So, like what you're saying, like, thankfully your students, right, are open-minded enough. But the moment you say entity, people get triggered. They're like, an entity? I don't want to see an entity. Right. It's like, well, they're all around us.
Just so you know, I come from a long lineage of exorcists. So, you know, Chinese history, this is, you know, I teach people this stuff. It's all predicated on one thing, your belief system. And so the karmic model of understanding when you cast magic is that the individual that is subjected to your magic will be subjected to their belief system. So if you believe in up and down, in and out, good or bad, if you walk under a ladder and you believe you're going to have good luck's going to find you. If you walk under a ladder and you believe you're going to have bad luck, that's exactly what you're getting. The universe doesn't have a moral compass. It will give you exactly what you're looking for. And that's the part that people get all distorted with. They think that it's you're subject to the duality. Your duality will bring in the entities. Like if I'm doing an exorcism, it's because you believe in this stuff. It's coming to you because you believe it. That's it. In the story. I'll have it just like when you were talking about aliens. I've been channeling and working with entities for over 30 years. In the last 6 months, I've seen thousands of aliens in people's auric fields that I'd never seen before, because it's fashionable right now. It's big. It's open. There's a lot of messaging coming out, and the more you believe in it, the more it will find you. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I've never seen that much, because most of the time over the last 30 years, it would normally be a cycle of Buddha, Jesus, light source, universe,
Right. Yeah.
whatever that person's into, it will present itself in the field. But
Yeah.
lately, in the last 6 months, one ET after another, alien, whatever you want to call it, they're coming in like droves. And I think it's cool. Whatever you get into, whatever you believe, and
Mhm.
it will be realized and it will be transmuted into your field. But that's generally the source of an exorcism, is that need to bring it in. And mostly people have this Hollywood fantasy about this lower frequency demonic form. And so Tom Campbell makes a very good point. The large consciousness system gives you exactly what you want. So if you want to
Yeah.
fight the big dragon with a sword, and you want to have the damsel in distress and all that, that's coming right for you. That's how it works.
Yeah. I'm so glad you touched on that, because that's another unpopular opinion that I share, which is when it comes to healing, like I still do. I just restarted it again. But the whole reason why I got into energy healing and Reiki in particular is because of my car accident. So it was a crisis situation. So what I wanted to do after I learned it a couple months later was I wanted to offer that as an offering, a free offering, to help other people that were in that similar situation. It didn't have to be a car accident. It could be something, a crisis situation. That was how I learned to see and work with energy immediately. It was like in the fire. And what I started seeing with a lot of people don't have true demonic attachments. Majority of people don't. But the few that I did see, very, very few, because I got to that point with the Akashic Records leading up to, the accident, they had me work on fear, overcoming fear, just perceiving everything just as it is. It's not scary. It's not evil. It's not going to hurt you. So when I started seeing attachments or entities that were connected to people, I did what I do in the records. I just talked to them. I could see how they wanted to move energy and kind of, possibly attach to me too. I was always like, no, who are you? Where'd you come from? Like what we call in Hawaii, talk story. I would just talk story with them. Be like, all right, tell me what you're about, and without, like, hands down, they're all manifestations of that client. Every single one. They started off, in some type of fear or an insecurity, very small, but it's like an egregore. You start feeding it more. You start feeding it food. The food source is your energy and your focus and your attention. It's the fear. It's whatever it is that you feed into it. So for one person in particular, it was fear of being financially unstable. And then it just kind of grew into its own entity. But it all came from the person. That's why, it's so easy for people to kind of dismiss, doing their shadow work, doing the work, energetic hygiene, whatever. It's easier to blame the devil. It's easier to blame something bad, something evil. But it all starts with you. It's opening yourself up to that field of possibility where, and, if you think like exactly what you said, if you think something bad's going to happen to you, then it will. You create it. You're your own creator. So that's essentially what I do with all the work that I do. I just try to emphasize that to every single client, is that you are the one in control. You can choose whatever it is that you can live your life, however it is that you want. I'm just reading this current moment in time. But whatever it is you want to do outside of here, like, don't listen to me. If you don't like what I tell you about what's going to happen 2 years out from now, change it. Like, I'm just tuning into a TV station. That's it. You have all these other stations that are available to you. But it's just empowering people, because I'm like, when it comes to healing or anything, because I have a business background, very corporate, I don't want you to come back to me. Like, I have no incentive to keep making money off of someone. They're like, oh, when should I come back to you? Should I see you next week? Should I, should I pay you another couple hundred or whatever? I'll pay you whatever you want. I've had people that have offered that to me. I'll pay you whatever you want. I'm like, I'm not in it for the money. I can only help you as much as you can help yourself. I don't want a repeat. If somebody constantly comes back to me, I'm not doing my job, because you're not remembering that you can do it yourself. You're putting the power back in my hands and I don't want that. I don't want people to constantly come back to me. If you have questions, of course I can help you. I can answer a question. I'll do it for free. But that's one thing about every single person, is that we've been programmed and conditioned to be that disempowered. Religion is, in my opinion, detaching from that was great. Praying to, you are God.
Well, you're really praying to yourself, but I mean,
Absolutely.
the separation is the problem,
yeah.
right? It's like that. As a priest, I feel like religion gets a beating all the time. People got to start somewhere. Cut everyone a break. They got to start. They got to get a little taste of something. You know what I mean? Like, just start somewhere, wet your whistle, and expand your consciousness. I always tell people, the biggest red flag is when someone gives you an absolute truth. No. Whoa.
Yeah,
We got to stop.
absolutely.
We got to stop right now. That's all you got to do to discern. That if they give you, this is the absolute truth, it's time to go in the other direction, in my opinion. That's that, having done this for so long, because there is no right or wrong way. There are a million different versions. When you get it out there, or you go in there, which I sort of attribute, you will find your own magical mystery ride that will be catered to you. And that comes in all forms, because even when it comes down to like soul and soul contract, I've got to be honest, that's a construct of the individual. And it's like it can be reflected on their own journey, what that means to them. But most people are like, and I listened to what you said, because it's something that triggers me. The laws of the universe. Oh, okay, that's a realm of man thing. I'm good. Yeah, I'm good with that pretty much puts it in a nice little box.
The rules and regulations.
It's the rules, and there are no rules. There are none. And I mean, that's where people don't like the idea that they can't be controlled. If you're sitting here and you're swearing left, right, and center, and someone goes, "Excuse me, you got to stop. That's unacceptable. You're very rude, and you're offending me." Well, straight away, you need to look within yourself and deal with your own mummy issues or whatever it is. But it's your stuff. It's not mine. And the fact that you need to control me because I'm using the F-bomb is the very reason why you need to stop right now, take a deep breath, and process whatever it is that's controlling you, that you need to control me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was such a big help. And that was the beauty of being in the records before I did any of this stuff, when I was just doing it for my own healing. Because I wanted to understand that soul contract. I wanted to understand the situation between me and my ex. Mm-hmm. And when it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh, thank God I saw this, and I can understand it. I can let it go. Was really getting to that point of, okay, we're both on our own journeys. What is it that you want to see and get from this life versus me, right? I wanted to understand more about my own strength, my own inner strength, threw myself in the fire. I've never gotten to that point since, even as much as I've been in the records. I was in a space of like truly unconditional love. In a vision, it was a very quick vision that I saw of him and I. And in that vision, I was just like, oh my God, this is unconditional love. Like, we don't even know what that is here in this form. But then I was just like, oh, he is not this selfish, narcissistic, all the things. He's not that at all. But that's what he wants to experience here in this life. So who am I to take that away from him? If you want to experience being that, this, that, go for it. It's all you. But that is the biggest, I would say, that's the biggest hurt that we could do onto someone else, is not allowing them to express themselves fully, is not accepting them. That is actually unconditional love, is accepting somebody in who exactly the way that they want to express themselves, not just physically, in every which manner. It's just, I love you and I'm not going to try to change you, because this is how you want to express yourself in this life. So it's getting to that point. That's why I was saying, like, the 0 point, the neutrality. That's what the records helps like immensely with for every single person. Like, when I see people in my own personal life, I'm like, I have no desire to change anybody. I don't look at them as like, oh, you're an alcoholic or you're this, you're that. I'm just like, you're exactly where you're meant to be right now. And wherever you go from here is up to you. But it's accepting people exactly how they are in that moment, because that's it's there. It's perfectly aligned to that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I amen to that 100%.